Derek Goold joins us, and if you're a Cardinal fan, not much not to like when you're bringing Arenado here. All right, Derek. Listen. What can I say that's negative? Really not a lot. I would discuss him as a player in a sec. But from a who they gave up standpoint and the fact they got some money from the Rockies, a no-brainer for John Mozeliak. Let me get your thoughts. Go ahead.
Something that they've wanted to do for a long time. These conversations probably trace back 12 months, but really the Cardinals' interest in Arenado even goes further back than that. They've kind of identified him in the same way they've identified other players, some of whom they've acquired, one of whom famously they eventually acquired in Matt Holliday. This player that they pursue because they think he's such a good fit. He's a good fit for the city. He's a good fit for the lineup. He's a great fit for the style of baseball that they want to play. And they had to get creative. What moved over here in the past few weeks to make it happen was, the Cardinals were being aggressive. Arenado's willingness to waive his no trade and want to go somewhere. And then, of course, you have the creative work that they did to figure out a way to make that contract satisfy what the Cardinals wanted to get from it and what they were willing to shoulder, and then the motivation the Rockies had to clearly cut some costs.
All right, how about the other opt-out in 2022, which they put in there? Let me get your take on that.
Yeah, in some ways that makes sense, right? Like, you think about all the uncertainty going into this season that we're obviously dealing with even today in the news with the proposal to shorten the to push back spring, to maybe shorten the season. Then, of course, you have the CBA expiring at the end of this year. It's not exactly like this will be a representative year to make a decision on, or a representative year where next year all the owners are like, okay, hey, the economy's reset, revenues are back flowing in. No, you're looking at a CBA negotiation at that time. So it makes some sense for him to get an opt-out that is later once everything has kind of reset. Maybe health has returned, crowds have returned, a 162 season has returned, and a new CBA in place. So he can make a decision, in that environment as opposed to one at the end of this season.
All right, how much money did they increase to payroll specifically with this move here in the last 24, 72 hours? Let me hear.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand that. They're going to lower payroll than next year. Some of that is hinged also on the forthcoming deal. About $35 million as of right now from last year's deal, or from last year's payroll. They've added, some to it. Obviously, Jack Flaherty is going to get a raise through arbitration. Adam Wainwright got a raise and guaranteed money coming back. But they are still enough below where if the Rockies cover half of his salary, they're going to be below last year's payroll and still have the money to sign Yadier Molina, as they expect to do here in the near future.
But the Rockies are only going to give them $50 million of the contract. Now, how does that take care of half the salary?
For the coming season. They want the 2021 payroll. Yeah, they want 2021 to be less than 2020. That's their plan. That's what they have said publicly. That is what they have said privately. That's what they're working off of. And then they expect, once they can get ticket sales going, once they can get 40,000 people back in the ballpark, once they can get all the games, then they're reset. Now, it's a big part of this, though, is Arenado's willingness to defer money. And that's also part of what's going on here as far as the approval, because any of that deferred money, the union is going to want to make sure that he does not devalue the present-day value of that contract. So that's part of the approval process, and part of what got this rolling is his willingness to defer money for the Cardinals and that he'll get as a result.
All right, how much pressure is on Mozeliak to do something? The Cardinals last year, they were horrendous offensively, haven't done a whole heck of a lot in the last 2-3 seasons. They haven't been a very exciting team, to say the least. I know 2 years ago they won a playoff series against Atlanta, so that was good, but then they ended up getting swept. Last year was bad against San Diego. How much pressure is on Mozeliak to do something big here this offseason?
There was a lot of pressure, not just because of the results in the playoffs, and then before that, remember, there were several years where they weren't in the playoffs. The Cardinals made the move for Paul Goldschmidt. They made the move for Marcell Ozuna. Those were trades that they had to make to try to find the bat order. They have still been, kind of because of performance or because of the look that they have internally for that boost, they've still been on the lookout for that one bat. But more importantly, though, you think back, like the Cardinals tried to make the trade for Stanton, and he did not waive his no-trade clause to come to the Cardinals. The Cardinals felt they had a deal in place with David Price, and he signed with Boston. The Cardinals, this is something that Mozeliak has brought up, and he's heard from ownership, that they've been the bridesmaid too much. Here's a guy who they have pursued month after month, even more than a year, and they have a guy who now wants to be here or is willing to waive the no-trade clause to be in St. Louis, that is as big a boost as anything. Yes, they need to have the performance on the field. Yes, the expectation of the fans are that they not just contend for a division title, but they contend for a World Series title. Yes, the offense has been meek and dull and boring, and they have relied on elite pitching and elite run prevention to even get to the wins and get to the postseason that they have in the last 2 years. They needed an exciting team, but they needed an exciting move that reaffirmed their brand as a destination club, as a place that could have stars. And they got that with Goldschmidt first, and they certainly have that with Arenado.
100%, but he's also made 2 horrendous trades. The Luke Voit trade was a horrendous trade. And, of course, he made the trade with Tampa and gave up that young player who had a wonderful postseason. So he did make 2. It has nothing to do with money and payroll and everything else. He did make 2 horrendous trades. So, in essence, because of those 2, we need to make a good one here. Yeah, I sound like a Cardinal fan because I think with the pressure on the pressure on those 2 horrendous deals, Derek, in my eyes, made this an essential scenario for him this offseason, Arenado. Don't you agree?
I think the Randy Arozarena trade, the one where they send Randy Arozarena, that one really stands out to the Cardinals. The Luke Voit so much, and I'll tell you why. They wanted a lefty. They got Shreve. That obviously didn't work out for them, but they did get Gallegos. That's beside the point. If Luke Voit had been their first baseman, they still would have made the trade for Goldschmidt. That's sort of how they see it internally. They would have still made the move for Goldschmidt because they had a chance to get Goldschmidt, and they didn't quite know that Voit was going to go on the power surge and lead the American League in home runs, but he wasn't going to get that opportunity to be their starting first baseman ahead of their ability to hire or to acquire Goldschmidt. The Randy Arozarena one is really interesting because it has made the Cardinals look internally and audit how they use and evaluate and consider talent in-house before they make that move. And it has really colored this offseason in the sense that they have been hesitant to say, make trades that they could have for Tyler O'Neill or make trades that they could have for Harrison Bader or, move Elaine Thomas or those kind of things, because they feel like, okay, what if this is the next guy to go off and become the player that we think he can be and do so elsewhere? We don't want that same Randy Arozarena moment.
That's a good point. I don't want to get burned twice. Well done, Derek. You can't argue from a Cardinal standpoint. Arenado in that city should do very well. Thanks for a few. Keep up the good work. Appreciate you coming on here today.